In 1993, birth was given to thunder when 5 friends from Oakland, California formed Indian Summer, a band of ferocity, of internal conflict and affliction. With such a short discography, let's get into the angry suns and the heartfelt rage. This is Woolworm, the story of Indian Summer. It begins in the year 1991. To quickly preface, let me go over their origins. Indian Summer was hardcore and emo-centered, very much reminiscent of bands such as Rites of Spring, which essentially kickstarted the style that has come to be known as emo. Indian Summer really came from a unique scene that consisted of bands with screamed vocals but subdued guitars and introspective lyrics, giving the music an emotive touch that could really grasp listeners. While hardcore bands from DC originally exercised this style, down the line, bands like Indian Summer would take influence from earlier bands, but also indirectly become the forefathers of what would later become known as Midwest emo. Though the band themselves wasn't from the Midwest, I think it's safe to say that groups from the Midwest were heavily inspired by Indian Summer in the long run. Contemporaries included Ordination of Aaron, Current, and Embassy, all of which made raw, guttural music with urgency. At the time, this was a very underground style, so most of these bands have been forgotten. Many, including Indian Summer, played only local clubs and colleges, and never really achieved mainstream attention, at least not back then. Fast forward 25 years, Indian Summer has been acknowledged by Rolling Stone magazine, and are fondly remembered for their thought-provoking, hardcore-tinged cuts. Now let's get to the good stuff. Indian Summer was Adam and Seth Nana, Dan Bradley, Iad Kyla, and Mark Bianchi. Their beginning dates back to 1991, when 18-year-old Adam Nana moved to East Bay and formed a pop-punk trio, Jabberjaw. With his twin brother Seth joining him on bass, the trio released a single by the summer of 1992 and booked a 40-day tour. In order to have money to live, the band would sell $5 hand-screen t-shirts and $3 7-inch records to pay for gas and fast food. Upon returning from the tour to Oakland, California in August 1992, Jabberjaw disbanded. It was then Adam put an ad in Maximum to recruit members for his new project, Sinker, which was another short-lived endeavor. Drummer Dan Bradley and Mark Bianchi, who had both been a part of Sinker, stayed with Adam and Seth going into their next project, which would eventually become Indian Summer. The name Indian Summer comes from the Doors record Morrison Hotel. The band would recruit new member Iad Kyla, and shortly after, Indian Summer would be in full force, ready to begin the process of recording early on. Bart Thurber ran his House of Faith recording studio in an office building and would charge bands $75 a day plus tape to record. The band would arrive at the building and begin their journey. Across their career, Indian Summer would be featured on various split singles that were all recorded here, along with most of their discography. The first batch of tracks to be recorded would be Reflections on Milkweed, Aren't You Angel, Orchard, Millimeter, and Woolworm. Pertaining to the emotionally downtrodden nature of Indian Summer's best-known song, Woolworm, Adam Nana was quoted as saying, "My brother and I came from dysfunction. That's what we knew. I didn't know about politics, so why would I sing about that? My old man bailed on us when we were right out of the womb. When you start screaming, 'I am the angry sun,' it's hard to read that any other way." Recording played out the same way their live shows would. Raw, energetic, and intense, but playful at the same time. This session was accompanied by the beautifully haunting 1930 recording of Bessie Smith's See If I'll Care. The story goes that Adam stumbled upon the song after finding a bunch of old jazz and blues records at a junkyard, and he thought the track would add a bit of color to their sound. During this time, 3/5 of Indian Summer lived in a duplex nicknamed the Blue House, out of which Repercussion Records was run, a label the band managed. Parties would become a common occurrence for the bunch at night. Can you really party to Codine's The White Birch? Adam considered. We found a way. Consideration for Indian Summer's debut project's cover art came from the hand of Adam Nana. I always thought there were a lot of limitations in what people were doing with cover art in punk rock. I didn't want to make another 7-inch with a folded over piece of paper. With a few reams of chipboard, he made a jacket, with the now iconic pitchfork on the cover. The pitchfork had no mystical associations, it was simply a stick that rested in the second tom hole of the bass drum. The back cover was a boy in a field, on the root beer colored single, which sold around 3,000 copies over the next year. A second Bart Thurber session took place in March 1994, in which songs I Think Your Train Is Leaving, Sugar Pill, and Touch the Wings of an Angel Doesn't Mean You Can Fly were recorded. With time still left in the session after the completion of the initial cuts, a third song, Truman, would emerge on the spot with a little improvisation. A pattern had been established within members of Indian Summer. Rehearse 2 nights a week, play as many shows as possible, record, and start anew. That summer, the band would begin their tour in a 1970 Ford Econoline they called Electra. Going all around the United States, the van wasn't doing great, and the majority of the income from touring had to go into their vehicle. They even missed a few gigs. The whole tour was held up by duct tape. In July of 1994, Indian Summer stopped calling their songs by names. Setlists became doodles, including that of 3 lightning bolts. The conditions of the tour were grueling. After going from the Midwest to Canada, shows in Seattle, Oregon, and Reno, among others, were canceled. The band had no money and had to steal gas to get around. By the time members had arrived back at the Blue House, Iad had lost 20 pounds because they didn't even have enough money to eat. However, the final day of the tour was successful. It took place on August 13, 1994. It was a sold-out homecoming show at 924 Gilman Street with Jara, Snapcase, Good Riddance, and Lifetime. This would ultimately be Indian Summer's final show and the end of their short but iconic career. 1994's Science was the collection of songs the band had completed in the Bart Thurber sessions that would become known to the world. The end of Indian Summer was due to a number of reasons, most prominently a difference in vision and Adam's lack of interest in continuing writing those types of songs. It was simply a case of changing and moving on. Seth Nana told Washed Up Emo Podcast, "It had just run its course. We were all best friends, and by the end of it, we were not best friends. We considered that a young person's music. We wanted to get out and reach more people, and Indian Summer was an intimate affair. You couldn't play that in a bar in San Francisco in front of a bunch of 40-year-olds. After the band broke down their gear, Iad headed back to his home in West Bay, which was ultimately the last time he'd ever see Adam or Seth in person. The summer that made Indian Summer into what they were had officially come to a close." So what became of the members of Indian Summer? Seth Nana went on to play in Free Jazz Combos, Eastern Seaboard, and Ghost Trees. Adam got into producing and founded Future Recordings in 2008 to release records for his own projects, We All Inherit the Moon and City of Heracleon. Along with this, a new release of Indian Summer's 1994 endeavor, Science, would see the light of day once more. Mark Bianchi would join Mo Hinder, and along with what would become Duster's Clay Parton, form the band Calm. Mark continues to write and score music to this day. Iad Kyla would go on to drum for Attack Formation, Paper Messiah, and would tour for years with Her Space Holiday. In the years following the band's demise, a number of releases have come about, including a live show that would become known as Hidden Arithmetic, as well as Giving Birth to Thunder, the majority of their recorded output re-released by the Numero Group in 2019. We never took it too seriously. We never thought when we were playing that 25 years from now people will catch on to what we were doing. Indian Summer is one of those bands clouded behind a wall of mystery and mystique. You see the cover of Giving Birth to Thunder, and you get lost in the image, its abstract nature, and subtle yet powerful simplicity. I believe Indian Summer fits perfectly amongst bands such as Slint that made a huge impression on their genre, but really had no intention of doing so. One of those rare, perfect storms of inspiration that led to a legacy that has still retained relevance all these years later. You think of all the angry sons Indian Summer's music has spoken to, all the youth that struggled to find their way in life. While the band only lasted around a year, the impact of their music is still being felt like a tidal wave. In the end, Indian Summer was a project of intensity and power that will go down in history for its unique contributions to hardcore and emo.